I use she, her pronouns. I'm not sir.
Oh.
Yeah, like it's like a knife in the heart.
I'm not consumed by what we did wrong. I'm consumed a little bit more by what we did right.
Happy Halloween. We're going to show some dudes in costumes dressing up as women and for the sake of Halloween. Also, Gavin Newsom, presidential candidate, D. California. We need to talk about him because he's going to be a big deal. The whole Palestine thing and the overwhelming amount of people that support terrorism is wild in this country. All that and more coming up on this episode of Daily Caller Live. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name is Jobob. Daily Caller Live starts right now.
Jobob. That is actually her name, Jobob.
Live from the dingy bunker that is completely and totally, utterly cut off from the outside world, except for you fine folks. My name is Jobob. This is Daily Caller Live. Thanks so much for tuning in on today. It is Tuesday, Halloween, October 31st, the year of our Lord 2023. And because it's Halloween, we're going to start off again with the less serious stuff because, I don't know, I think it's funny. And because in the spirit of Halloween, I want to show some people in costumes. And I think decent costumes, to say the least. This video has been floating around the internet that I thought was fascinating. Also, we're going to talk about the whole protesting in support of terrorism, I guess, that is existing in way too many places across this country, but also the implications of that. So we'll get to that. Again, the more serious fare. But because it's Halloween, we're into our candy today. We want some dessert first. I wanted to play you this. This clip is making its way around the internet. It's some dude dressed up as a woman who is going to restaurants, it appears, and doing some sort of review video at these various restaurants and effectively forcing the staff to say, hey, she is, what, get confused effectively about what it is that they're eating. So this dude is trying to, it appears, set people up for failure and set them up so that he can be aggrieved that they used the wrong pronouns, even though visually it looks like a dude dressed up as a woman. Again, Halloween, maybe that's appropriate today and today only. And two, the dude doesn't even attempt to change his voice at all. He's like, this is super offensive. So anyways, without further ado, we'll get to this and then move on to more serious fare. But if you haven't already, do us a favor. Hit the little like button down here and the little share button. Really, really appreciate it, especially if you're watching on Facebook. So anyways, without further ado, watch this dude dressing up as a woman.
It looks like he's having a nice feast.
She, her.
Okay.
Yeah, it's okay. It's all good.
But it was not all good.
Hi. I use she, her pronouns. I'm not sir. Yeah, like it's like a knife in the heart. I did specifically ask ahead of time not to be called sir. Yeah, I'm just going to go. Okay. The Sweetwater starts at...
Yes,
okay.
Sir? I'm so sorry. I apologize.
It's just always like a knife. It always hurts every single time. I was wondering if there's a manager I could talk to about something that happened. Yeah, I was called sir.
Oh, okay.
It just really sucks every time it happens.
Sorry about that.
I don't need to be called ma'am. I just need to not be called sir, you know? Thank you. Did you call me sir? Hey, I just want to tell you that the person who gave me this called me sir.
What?
Called me sir.
Oh.
It's just like, it kind of just hurts a lot to get called sir.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay.
Very good. Thank you so much. No, oh, yeah. Thank you. I'm not a sir. Nothing like a good misgendering. It is a knife in the gut when I get called sir. I feel like I need to tell him. I need to tell him that hurt. It hurts more though, and it's not intentional because it means like this is sir to him. I know you didn't mean it, but I'm not a sir.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. I know you didn't mean it. It's just, you know, it hurts. I know when people clock me, it's fine, but like it does kind of hurt. Thank you. I'm not sir.
Oh, sorry.
Not sir. Not sir. But the guy who dropped the food off, he called me sir twice in a row.
Okay, I'll let him know that and GM as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Wow, I let that play the whole way through because it looks like people were enjoying it. The comment section lit up. So let me get to some of these. I don't know, I chuckled. David says, who cares, sir? And I thought this was interesting. Gail says, a knife in the heart, question mark, eyes rolling. Yes, I get that. But the thing that I thought was really interesting, at some points, it was a knife in the heart. Other points, it was a knife in the gut. So depending on the location of the restaurant, it would appear, you could get stabbed in multiple places if you're misgendered. That's what it feels like. I wonder... Now, I'm not advocating for this in any way, shape, or form. Nobody should perpetrate violence upon anybody. But I wonder what it would feel like to actually get stabbed in the heart or the gut. And if it actually does feel the same as being called sir, as you clearly are a dude. James, the crying, laughing face emojis is, I think, the favorite one. Nobody cares what you pretend to be, sir. I appreciate it would appear that every person in this comment section, it would appear, is more laughing about this than they are just angry. Now, I understand there's a need for anger when they're pushing stuff like this into schools and being taught to children in government schools. I get that. That's anger-inducing, and I totally understand it. But at the same time, when it's stuff like this, just clear absurdity, you know, it's better to laugh about it. There's several people in the conservative movement that I look up to that say, you know, conservatives are having more fun. We're in a position life-wise to be having a better time than all of the libs, and it would appear that we should laugh at this stuff as much as possible. But yeah, I like it. I like all the comments in the comment section. Wow, geez, they keep flowing. I can't get to all of them or see all of them. But OMG, this dude needs to get over himself, says Donna. Yeah, correct. So that's that. We won't spend a ton of time on that because I think, I don't know. I've made the point. Especially on Halloween, dudes in costumes and all that sort of stuff. Now, to get to a more serious little component of the show today, I want to defund the UN. Entire transition from men being women and pretending to be women and all that sort of stuff. The entire transition is now to defund the UN, which will lead us into the whole Palestine protests, which are crazy around the country. And I know we've talked about this before, but I feel like there's a big point that I'd like to make here that I don't see a lot of people talking about, or at least I'm not seeing it in the main scope or even necessarily the conservative scope. But it starts here. Over the weekend, the United Nations, which is, I believe George Bush called it a useless debate society, which it in fact is, got together to try and pass a resolution to condemn what Hamas did on October 7th. Geez, for some reason in my mind it's 6th, but it's 7th because of the time change. But the terrible act that Hamas acted on, or just the terrible atrocities that Hamas committed in Israel, the UN was asked, will you pass a resolution to condemn that? Spoiler alert, the Useless Debating Society did not pass the resolution to condemn Hamas. So you couldn't even get the 2/3 of the countries, which I guess that's the threshold that you need to pass such resolutions. You couldn't even get 2/3 of countries to agree that, yeah, what Hamas did was terrible. Even those countries even could have said, that voted no or abstained, could have said, well, we support Palestine, but what Hamas did was terrible. They couldn't even say that. They just had to not condemn what Hamas was doing. Now, here's the kicker. Here's the audio and the video from it. When they didn't pass the resolution to condemn the terrorist killing of grandmothers and babies, the audience applauded. Why? We'll talk about why I think that happened at the end of this. But watch this clip, again, from the UN, which should be defunded and not paid attention to anymore when they failed to pass a resolution calling what Hamas did bad. Check this out.
Having failed to obtain a two-thirds majority of members present and voting, Draft Amendment A/ES 10 L26 is not adopted.
All right, that's what I think is interesting here. Notice the applause. Oh yes, we did it. We didn't condemn terrorists for committing terrorism. Words this morning, a little bit jumbled. But the applause there, for some reason, there's a huge proportion of countries that think, well, if we can stick a thumb in the American's eye, that would be a good thing to do, and we should absolutely do it. That seems to be how the people in the UN think, to which I ask, one, why is the UN a thing? And two, if the UN is going to be a thing, why do we treat every country as equal? That might be a controversial thing to say, but I'm curious, why is it do we treat every country that participates in the UN as if they are the same as us? We have, 330 million people in this country. We have the biggest GDP, the biggest economy. We help the most of the world, whether American taxpayers agree with it or not. We do it. And yet, I don't know, tiny countries like Zimbabwe. I don't actually know if Zimbabwe is that tiny of a country, but in terms of economic output and overall participation in the world, pick a country, pick literally any country except for, I don't know, the top 10, any country out of the top 10 countries in global GDP, and ask yourself, why are they treated? Not saying that we should treat them poorly, but why are they treated like, oh, well, they're the same as the United States. Their value system is just as valid. Their economy and their talks about the global economy is just as valid. How can we pretend like that's a real thing? Also, the UN obviously doesn't function in any way, shape, or form in any meaningful capacity, which, I will say this, I think is a good thing. The only thing scarier than the UN being totally and entirely unfunctional, like they are here not being able to condemn Hamas, is the UN being functional, right? The last thing I want, and the last thing that anybody should want, is a global law or a global enforceable laws, which means you would have to pay for somebody to enforce them, which means that something that was illegal in Timbuktu is also illegal in Los Angeles, as if those places are exactly the same. Global order and global order is a good thing, but global law binding countries that have nothing to do with each other, and especially in a cultural sense, is a terrible idea. So the only thing more scary than the UN being as dysfunctional as it is now is the UN actually working. So I say we should get out of the UN, dissolve it entirely, just completely get rid of all of our participation in the United Nations, which again is a meaningless debate society. But the overall support for Hamas and terrorists is concerning on a bunch of different levels. Let me see where. Let's get to this first, because I think this is interesting. Protesters supporting terrorism protested during Antony Blinken's speech. I'm just going to play you this clip, and then we're going to roll on to the next protesting clip, and then I'll make my big point that I feel like a lot of people aren't making. Watch this. This is Antony Blinken, Secretary of State, in front of Congress with a bunch of people with, I think that's symbolizing blood on their hands, raising their hands up. We'll get to that in a second. Watch this.
The President and I have both stressed the need for Israel to operate by the rule.
Why are we handcuffing and arresting them?
Committee will suspend.
Let them be at the table. Why aren't they at the table? Ceasefire now! I beg you! Ceasefire now!
Secretary Blinken, you may continue. Thank you.
Chair. So I was saying the President and I have both stressed in our conversations with the Israeli government the need for Israel to operate by the law of war and in accordance with international humanitarian law, and to take all possible measures to avoid civilian casualties.
All right, I let that play on because what I thought it said was good. They're looking to avoid civilian casualties, which is a good thing. We should try to do that. However, he also mentioned we wanted Israel to make sure that they abide by the laws of war, which Hamas doesn't do, by the way. They aren't uniformed. They hide behind civilians, which is not uncommon knowledge. Everybody knows that. And yet people still are protesting in the streets. There's a comment. Here's a comment that I'm really fascinated by. Lila, probably, says this: only terrorist in this situation is the Israeli government. Okay, interesting. Now, I don't want to rehash the entire history of that region of the world, because I think we did that pretty early on, saying, hey, look, the same people that are talking about, well, we are on stolen land here in the United States. Okay, so shouldn't that mean then that whole region, from the river to the sea, as the pro-terrorists so often put it, isn't that historically Jewish land? Weren't they there first? And isn't there a bunch of infrastructure that still exists from the Temple Mounts at the time of King David and Solomon? Isn't it their ancestral land then? So aren't the same people making that argument in this country? Shouldn't they be consistent with it in another country? But aside from all of that, just from the baseline standpoint of, okay, was it Israel that went into civilian communities and just indiscriminately killed civilians? Nope. So I'm fascinated by that comment. I'm curious how you even got on this page, but I don't know. What are you going to do? Let's see. I want to move on to well, okay, so not moving on necessarily, but going to this, because I think this is fascinating too. This kind of just shows the idiocy. Idiocy is a harsh term. They're kids. They're dumb. Kids are dumb. But this young lady is calling for in the Free Palestine movement, is calling for all of the boycotting of several different American companies that I don't know, do business with Israel. I guess I don't really know what her point is, but I think it's funny. Watch this.
We call on you to boycott Starbucks, McDonald's, Disney, Nestle, Coca-Cola, Pizza Hut, Burger King, Pepsi, Domino's, Papa John's, Nike, CeraVe, and Airbnb. And the list goes on. This demonstration should make our demands clear.
As you can see, she says, we need to boycott Nike while wearing Nike Air Force Ones. But here's the thing. Here's the big point that I think I would like to get to, and this is what the headline is. These kids are getting people killed. Why is it that Hamas hides behind civilians? Why is it that the Hamas headquarters is underneath a hospital? Why? Just ask yourself why. Well, because they want any sort of retaliatory military operation conducted by Israel, or really anyone, to kill a lot of civilians so that they can say, look at how terrible our enemy is. Them being terrible themselves, they would like to say, look at how bad the other side is because they killed our civilians. Now you ask yourself, well then, so what allows that to continue happening? Well, it's people like this. The people that are in the streets saying, don't kill civilians, which again, I'm not pro killing civilians. I'm just also a realistic person that understands what happens in warfare. The people that are saying, ceasefire now, don't kill civilians. The only reason that it makes any sense for Hamas, and again, I'm not advocating for this, but the only reason that it makes sense for the terrorists in their own minds to hide behind civilians is because they understand the PR war. And if you're out there calling for a ceasefire, and if you're out there saying free Palestine, if you're out there saying Israel shouldn't retaliate in any way, shape, or form, that only perpetuates Hamas hiding behind civilians, which only would lead to more civilian casualties. Does that make sense? Are we understanding each other here? Do the people in the streets know that terrorist organizations who hide behind civilians and underneath civilian populations, do they know that playing into the PR war that Hamas knows that they're fighting will lead to more civilian casualties? Because look, if, and again, I'm not saying the world should do this, but let's just play this out in a hypothetical scenario. If the world didn't care about civilian casualties in terrorist warfare, they wouldn't do it. Hamas wouldn't do it. They would lose popularity with their own citizens because, remember, Hamas is the elected government in Gaza, which is a whole different topic that we can talk about more later and that we have talked about. They would lose popularity with the civilians they're hiding behind because, yeah, I'm sure the civilians there who are trying to evacuate and getting blown up for doing so are like, yeah, we don't like them either, right? They would lose popularity among their own civilians, but they would also not have any benefit of the rest of the world saying, don't kill civilians. If there weren't protests in the street, the likelihood of Hamas hiding behind civilians would go down. I'm not saying they would eliminate it entirely, but it would go down because they would realize, holy cow, this strategy of using civilians as shields to perpetuate a PR war across the entire planet isn't working. They would realize that nobody's paying attention to this as much as we want them to, so we need to pick a different tactic. That should make sense to a lot of people. But the people marching in the streets, calling for ceasefire around the world, are only perpetuating a system in which Hamas gets more civilians killed. I don't know how that's not more abundantly clear to people who are out in the streets acting like Israel should just go, well, they hid behind civilians. Shucks. What do we can't do anything. Hamas understands they're fighting a PR war. And calling for ceasefires in the wake of Israel trying to essentially retain its ability to exist only helps Hamas and ultimately gets more civilians killed. I don't know how that's so difficult to understand. But that's that. I also feel like this is Ryan brings up I think he's making a joke about it, but I also think it's a good point. From the river to the sea means delete the Jews. That's what that chant means. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. The chant itself doesn't mean, we just want land. We just want to exist, cohabitate together. No, it means get rid of the Jews in total. There's a lot to go off on this, but I don't know. It'll be fascinating to see how this ends up playing out. Benjamin Netanyahu had a press conference yesterday saying that, no, we're not going to cease fire. That's ridiculous. And also made the point that this isn't necessarily a retaliatory mission to seek vengeance, even though vengeance is something that some of the Israeli people might think that they get. It is a mission to eliminate Hamas. That is their stated goal. All of the talk shows on Sunday were like, well, what is Israel's stated goal? Well, they stated their stated goal several times and said, well, to eliminate Hamas. And if we can't eliminate Hamas, there will be an existential threat to our existence. So we need to eliminate Hamas. There's so much BS going around over this. It's just ridiculous. See, I'm curious about this. I would imagine this is a fake profile, Free Palestine. I'm not even going to attempt that name. But look, after all of that, I don't know. It's like arguing at a wall with some of these people who don't understand the history and the scope of the region and also don't understand that what they're doing, again, is getting civilians killed. So, I don't know if we're going to have time to get to the Gavin stuff, because there is another thing that I want to talk about. You know what? We're going to do an entire transition. I'm I know this is somewhat heavy. I understand this is a heavy topic. We'll talk about Gavin more tomorrow because what he said is important because he's running for president of the United States. Gavin Newsom, California governor, is running for president. He's just on TV, flat out lying, and we've got the facts to prove it. But we'll talk about that tomorrow. We're going to do an entire transition in something fun. Sometimes it's fun to see justice be served. In a courtroom, yes, but also just in life. This is a video that was making its way around the internet that will be the best thing that you see all day. I realize this is a hard transition from the concerning amount of Americans supporting terrorism. But hopefully this is something that we can all come together and say, yeah, this is awesome. A shoplifter at a store was attempting to shoplift and was being held up by a security guard when a rogue employee with a full bottle of Coca-Cola hit a sniper shot with this bottle of Coke straight into the head of the would-be criminal. Again, sweet, sweet justice. I want you to watch this and laugh with me together. Check it out. If you're just listening, you're not really able to see this, but this guy is trying to get around the carts at this particular store. Obviously, he has a bunch of stuff in his backpack trying to steal. And you see the Coke bottle, knocks him out. I love that. We're going to watch that one more time because I thought it was great. You can see the worker come in from the frame on the right. Overhand throw, soccer throw in style. Boom, direct hit. God, I love that. That's just that. If you needed your justice glands refilled, that was great. And also the reason why we're cutting things off. Wow, a lot of people. Marcel says karma is wonderful. Regina says that was fantastic. That comment didn't mean to go up, but also not entirely. I don't know. But wow, such a great direct hit. But speaking of justice, as we kind of move out to this, I wanted to play this. The documentary I filmed with the Daily Caller is now out. Speaking of justice and the legal system and the lack thereof of justice and the legal system, Lawless, the brand new documentary, is out on dailycaller.com. You can go to dailycaller.com. You can watch Lawless. I'm going to play you the trailer here. We haven't talked about this much. I think we talked about this when we were traveling to film it because, as you know, if you're a daily viewer of this show, when I travel, the show gets more difficult to do. Anyways, I'm going to play you this documentary trailer. It is fantastic. I had such a great time working on it. It went from like a 20 to 30 minute thing to like an hour long, going through all of the statistics, all of this craziness going around to defund the police. We basically went to 3 different cities, Austin, Los Angeles, and New York City, and tried to figure out, hey, did the whole defund the police thing work? Are these cities safer? Is there less crime? Now, the conclusion is somewhat obvious, but it still is an important documentary, I think, in understanding, hey, some of these policies are not good. Lawless, liberal policies, American blood. Check out this trailer, and then we'll wrap it up from there. Watch this.
Defunding the police has to happen. We need to defund the police and completely dismantle the Minneapolis Police Department.
When you get out to that fringe, they go, well, we have a reform idea for you. What if we just had no police at all?
The troubling rise in gun violence and homicide across the country.
Oh my goodness.
This is the worst I've ever seen it.
For me, this is Gotham. Everyone has a pipe, everyone has a knife, everyone has a gun.
If we get to a situation where you have a serious bank robbery in North Austin and something happening at ACL at the same time, we will not have enough police officers to respond to both incidents.
You can steal up to $1,000 of merchandise and walk out and not even be prosecuted.
Hell no, ain't nobody doing no time.
The signal that it sends by having a DA saying, look, we're done enforcing that law, that is not the signal you want going out there.
Our criminal justice system is insane.
So that is Lawless, Liberal Policies, American Blood, live now, available at dailycaller.com. I think you have to have a membership, but also there's like some crazy deal. It's like $1 for the rest of the year or something like that. So go to dailycaller.com, watch Lawless featuring yours truly. Also, Bo Parton from You Enjoy Media did a fantastic freaking job on this thing. Not that I had low expectations. That wasn't it at all. It's just the expectations that I did have. This thing blew it out of the water. So go to dailycaller.com, watch Lawless. Again, it's fantastic and has some pretty good information that you probably should know, especially if you don't want your area becoming a lawless hellhole like a bunch of these blue cities in blue states. Again, dailycaller.com, Lawless. I'll probably be pushing this for the next, while or so. But that'll do it for us today. Appreciate you sticking around, tuning in. If you haven't already, would appreciate a follow on any of the social media platforms that you so frequent. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Getter, Threads now. Jeez, there's too many of them. Just type in Jobob on pretty much any social media platform. You'll be able to find me there. Also, let's see, tour dates. November 9th, I will be at UCLA with Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA. November 13th, I will be in Amarillo, Texas at a TPUSA event that is a Yours Truly event, speaking specifically. November 17th, we'll be in Twin Falls, Idaho, and November 18th, we'll be in Black Falls, Idaho with the comedy tour. So a lot of those dates, we're closing out the year with a bang. We'll also be, holy cow, in Ohio in early December, and then in Florida also in December. So anyways, if you live in any of those places or you want to see the comedy tour roll on into your town, shoot me a message on social media. Just type in again, Jobob. You'll be able to find me pretty much anywhere. Be safe. Have a safe Halloween. Avoid razor blades in your candy, as has been the scare for the last couple decades. But have a safe and fun Halloween. We'll see you tomorrow. God bless America.